Good evening and welcome to the Pompey Politics Podcast.
I'm Ian Tiny Morris.
And I'm Simon Sansbury.
Marvellous. Welcome
So,
to show 102?
103, mate, 103.
103. I'm always one step
No,
behind.
you're right, sorry, 102, I beg your pardon. I'm thinking of the
Oh,
post that I did earlier in the week. Sorry.
oh, marvellous. That's right. What have we got this afternoon then, Simon?
So today we're asking the very, very serious question about why is it that in the 21st century that streets, bars, nightclubs, and other places aren't safe places for women, and why, sadly, it seems to be that actually some of the solutions are still having to becoming, women are having to solve those and make those places safer for themselves. So, a very serious topic for us to get into. And we have some esteemed guests joining us to give us some insight onto that issue.
Indeed we do, because at the risk of attempting to mansplain an issue, which we know we are not capable of. So welcome to the podcast, Natasha and Emma. So can I just ask you to introduce yourselves, the organisation you represent, and what your interest is in this particular topic. And if Natasha, I could start with you.
Hiya, I'm Natasha Lely. I'm the welfare officer for the Students' Union. And not only, so this became one of my legacy projects was to talk about safety on nights out and safety in the general public. So that's one reason, but in general, just because of lived experiences of friends, family, myself, it is something that we're all passionate about and want to look out for one another on.
Marvellous, thank you, Natasha. And Emma.
I'm Emma Cherry, and I run a Facebook page called Spike Aware. My niece was spiked going back a few months ago, and it's something that obviously I'm a bit passionate about because not a lot was done about it.
No, we'll come on to several of those issues later, Emma, in terms of whether the response is appropriate. I think we were expecting a third guest, Simon.
Yeah, we were. So I'm just trying to frantically scrabble around behind the scenes just to see if our third guest was okay. But yes, we did have Mariam was due to join us, who's the co-founder of Portsmouth Black Lives Matter. So we're just trying to sort out the technical stuff behind the scenes. So if I look frantically like I'm trying to do stuff in the background, that's because I am.
Marvellous. Do you want me to carry on with the question, Simon, or do you want to cut it?
Yeah, so I can start with the first question. So you gave us a bit of an explanation there, Emma, which was so without kind of we're quite clearly two middle-aged guys, so we're not necessarily aware of actually what are the sorts of situations that the women are facing. What's the sort of attacks and harassment that are getting reported? Would either of you want to go first on that one?
I don't know if Natasha's had more insight.
I think it varies because there are day-to-day things that happen that people report as long with more serious issues. So it really does vary. So there's what you would call less serious issues that are such as catcalling, things like that, to the more horrific sexual violence, and it really is they're all sexual harassment, but there is just very fun.
Okay, so so there's all sorts of things, kind of various different levels and to quite different extremes of severity. Is that the sort of thing that you're?
Most women and many men will be able to say about that they've experienced some sort of sexual harassment in their life. So it really does depend on their own experiences, and it will be things such as catcalling or touching or grabs, which are quite often daily occurrence for some people. And then there will be the more serious ones, such as when people have been spiked, and as you said, Emma, and then sometimes after that, incidents will happen, such as rape or other violent acts.
Okay, thank you very much. And Emma, did you have anything that you wanted to add on that one?
I think, I mean, just like Natasha was saying, basically, there's. Sorry, I just read the message. Sorry. Uh, could you repeat that again, please? Because it's just literally that it's been mixed up a bit, hasn't it?
No, I'm so sorry. Yeah, sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's just like you said, a bit of a.
Yeah, we'd originally planned to order the questions who we went to first, and unfortunately, as luck would have it, the guest that we'd planned to give that question to the first is the one that sadly hasn't been able to make it to the live stream. So sorry, that's kind of thrown both of our guests for a bit of a curveball. So apologies to that. That's not, we're not normally do that. It's a bit mean from a starter. But unfortunately, that's kind of how the evening's planned out. But it'll get better, honest. So yeah, our question was really kind of what sorts of things are being reported to you? What sorts of things are you kind of hearing about? What's the experiences that women and girls are facing?
The main ones that I'm getting, obviously, because I run the Spike Aware Facebook page, is basically people being spiked either with like needles or with tablets put in their drinks, waking up in weird, strange places. So for me, that's all that, like, obviously that's being reported to me at the moment. Obviously Natasha's is different because obviously she works with the university, so she has all sorts come to her.
Okay, that's great, and I'm pleased to say that we do now have Mariam has joined us. So thank you very much for joining us. It was a very late invite, so we appreciate you.
Really sorry, I was having some problems trying to connect. I was trying to connect to my iPad, but the iPad said no.
Oh no. Oh God! Well, thank you for struggling through the technical details. We're glad to have you. Thank you for persevering. I don't know if you wanted to. Do you want to catch a breath and then we give you a chance to introduce yourself? Or you're all right to do that now?
Oh, hit me! I'm Gucci.
Right. Okay. So if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself and the group that you represent, that'd be great.
So my name is Mariam Daniel, and I'm co-lead of Portsmouth Black Lives Matter.
Okay, that's fantastic. Thank you very much, Mariam. Thank you for joining us. And I don't know if you, in your struggle to get in, I don't know whether you caught that question, which was about what are the sorts of incidents that women and girls are reporting to you? What are people experiencing?
I did, yes. So I think with that question in general, we've always got to be quite aware of where we ask it. Obviously, as males, it's slightly different, but every single woman does have a story. And I think even those where Black people get microaggressions, people don't realise sort of the undercover nuances that women get on a daily occurrence. Sorry, it's a long day. So there's a lot that goes on. I think a lot of the time men aren't aware of the small little things, like the barmaid whose arm's being grabbed, or kind of getting your arse grabbed, or things like that. And I think with that question, I think it's more asking, as men, what have you noticed? As it is a lot of the time men who do this towards women. I'm not saying it doesn't happen towards men, but a lot of the time it is men who do this towards women. So as men, I like to sort of chuck that question back and be like, what have you noticed?
Yeah. Well, fair play. Thank you very much. I mean, to be fair, that was one of the things Ian and I were both quite conscious of. We're quite clearly two middle-aged men, and our experience of this situation is going to be different, and that's why we wanted to listen to what experiences you were hearing in the community, and the sorts of things that people are reporting to you, and things that you're seeing. From a personal
there
point
are always like loads of websites out there as well, like loads of different articles.
Yeah.
I always get people ask me questions about being Black, and I always use a response. There's Google, and I say to women, if a man asks you about what it's like being a woman, use the response that there's Google, that we don't have to go through our trauma to always educate someone.
Sure. Fair enough, and I appreciate that. We're here to make sure that you've got there's time and a space for you to be able to actually get that view across and to help us educate people. And that's kind of part of the thing. So we appreciate you sharing those experiences with us, because that hopefully will help move the education yardstick, as it were.
So to that end, I guess, Natasha, you highlighted that there is a very wide spectrum of these activities being reported. When they are reported, what sort of support do women receive when they come forward?
So once you report it to the police, you get allocated a single point of contact as an officer. So they support you throughout it. They'll explain what's happening at each step, answer any questions you might have. With your consent, refer you through to specialist support advocacy services such as an independent sexual violence advisor, and they also offer kind of suggestions to use rape crisis or victim support and that sort of thing. And then within the university, we have our wellbeing service for students, which they've got processes in place for any crisis the students are going through. And I know there's various local places such as parks as well.
And so it sounds like the provision for at the more serious end is in place. And again, I'm choosing my language very carefully. Mariam talked of microaggressions, and you spoke about the less serious end of how seriously is that taken? That kind of that lower level harassment.
It is taken seriously because those are what create social norms, and they lead to those more serious case, like they lead to the violent ones happening because by catcalling and by touching and by acting in those sorts of ways, you create a social norm around those, which makes the more violent actions seem more normal as well. And they all build up, so every single level is taken seriously.
Thank you, Natasha. Emma, so if I can just bring you in, I think you said, when you shared a little bit of your niece's story when she was spiked, perhaps she didn't get the support that you would have hoped for?
No, and also a lot of the girls that came forward, when they saw my niece's story, they also went through the same. Basically, they never had the backing from the police. It was they were told that they had to go to the clubs where they were spiked and get the CCTV footage. They were all sent to go to QA to go and get blood tests. When they went to QA, they were told that the police had to give them a number report, or they had to request the blood testing. They were literally pushed from pillar to post in the end, none of them, they all felt that what is the point in going to the police? Nothing was going to be done about it. And nothing still has been done about it. There was a young girl that was found in Cosham. She woke up in Cosham. She lived in Gosport, came from Gosport, woke up in Cosham and had no recognition of how she got there. Her parents took her to the police. They were told to go to have a blood test. The blood QA told them to go to St Mary's. St Mary's told them to go back to the police, go to your doctors. And in the end, they just thought, what is the point? And they've done nothing about it. And this has been reported by a lot of the girls that have come to the group. In their eyes,
thank you, Emma. And
nothing's getting done.
It does sound, a very poor response to what is a pretty serious act of violence. So, Mariam, can I invite you in? What level of support are women that you're working with getting in terms of when they report these actions?
So normally if I talk about other people's stories, it's ones that they've shared themselves, but I've always been very open talking about my story. A lot of the times when it is at the extent of rape, sometimes it is by people you do know most of the time, sometimes it isn't. And I think people don't realise that. No one talks about that there's no actual way to recover from it. In my case, when it happened to me, I didn't report until 2 months later. And so I saw the person in a club, they tried to say hello to me, and then I hit them, which I'm not a very violent person, and got me kicked out. And security's reaction to that was just tell the police. I then went to wellbeing as I'm a student, as Natasha said, and they helped me get in touch with Treetops. And then with Treetops, it was scheduled for testing, but they helped me do my videos there, and I got allocated my actual officer, who was great. But unfortunately, the officer changed, and there was where the legal system is so naff, to put it simple, nothing ends up happening. But the counselling that I received from Parks did help, but that doesn't mean justice. And I feel like if I talk to someone, I always say go to Parks, go to wellbeing, because it's so important to be able to heal from it properly. And there's no correct way to recover from it. But it is a really traumatic experience for anyone to go through. It's a violation.
And Mariam, thank you for sharing so openly. And what we will ask is that obviously when we put this episode up as a podcast, we will obviously include any and all links to those support organisations who can support anyone who's experienced something this terrible.
Okay, thank you both. So obviously, to spiking someone's drink is obviously it's effectively poisoning them. So we talk about what experience are women facing when they try to report those things. But in the circumstances where a case does get taken forward and criminal prosecution take place, what sort of legal deterrent is there? What sort of sentencing would someone be likely to face if they were found guilty of that sort of thing? And if I could direct that question first to Emma, if that's okay.
It holds a maximum of 10 years life sentence. 10 years sentence. But the thing is, since 2015, there's only been nationally, the newspapers have reported only 102 cases that have actually gone to court. So as a deterrent, I don't think really, to be fair, it's it's the years, it's perfect, but unless it's people are getting prosecuted, what is the point? There's no point to it.
That's a horrendously low.
It's very low
figure, isn't it? So that's just the number of cases. That's not even the number of convictions.
Exactly.
I don't really quite have words for that. That's but that kind of speaks
to convictions.
Yeah.
Nationally, that's what the newspapers have reported. But you go, literally on my Facebook group, I've got like over 300 followers. A majority of them are young girls that are too scared to come forward because they know nothing's going to get done about it. This is the issue. It's okay, when some girls have gone forward and they've reported it to the police, and basically they've been chucked from pillar to post of what they should be doing. They just give up. Who's going to believe them? That's the majority of what it is. Who's going to believe them?
Yeah, that's again, that's a horrendous situation, and if they're not, if what you're saying is when they do come forward, the response that they're getting from the police isn't that helpful, and they're not being believed and not listened to and not treated in the right way. It's just a shocking kind of unseen thing. And would either of you like to come in any further on that?
I would say going through it, it feels like you're almost a victim. Not a victim, it feels like you're the perpetrator, actually going through it with the police and reporting my case and it being taken nowhere. The amount of different questions they ask you, it feels like you're the one that's done something wrong. And I don't blame people for not wanting to go forward when you see the cases, such as what underwear are you wearing? Also, as the one that's the victim, why do we have to feel like we've done something wrong when you are a victim? Like, cases of spiking have gone up. I think in the last 2 months alone, there have been 200 cases of spiking reported. It's almost like nothing we can do is protecting us. And the legal system also isn't protecting us. I think now is many have to start educating themselves, because what else can we do? It's gotten to the point where we are now being injected because covering our drink just isn't enough. So I think it's women are doing everything they can, but it's not women's fault.
No, it kind of speaks to if I can, I'm not wishing to put words in your mouth, but it kind of seems more systemic than
It 100% is. That's because it is.
Yeah, that again, that's just absolutely terrible. At the end of the day, if the answer is just cover your drink, or I know kind of the injecting incidents that I saw reported on the news. Because kind of the suggestion was, wear a denim jacket so it's harder to inject you. That
We
can't
need
be a
men to start
solution.
telling men more, because
Yeah.
the law isn't protecting us.
No.
And we're trying to protect ourselves. So we need men to start educating their friends, because if every woman has a story, it's what else can we do? We've done all we can.
Yeah, and thank you. That's again, it's a horrific an horrific thing, and it just kind of beggars belief, really. And that's kind of the point of our podcast today, was that we were talking about, how is it that in a civilized society that actually, potentially 50% of our population are at risk of this sort of harassment and attack and maltreatment in public places, and how is that not a thing people are screaming from the rooftops about it going on? Natasha, is there anything you wanted to add onto that one at all?
Other than echo everyone else's points and everything they've said, but also it is really hard to report incidences, and many don't feel like they're being taken seriously. But if something has happened and you do feel up to reporting it, I would just still encourage people to report it anyway, because even though it could go to court, and there could be another person prosecuted for what they've done. And I guess that's kind of the only thing I'd like to add on to that, is if you are able to and you feel up to it, then do try and go through the reporting process.
Can I just add on to Natasha's point as well, is that even if it doesn't go anywhere, that will still be on a person's report. And so even if it doesn't go anywhere with what you've said, if that person's being seen and it seems to be a pattern, that will go somewhere.
Okay.
Exactly for that. More people that report it, the better chances of getting something done about it.
Exactly that.
So I guess that if every report generates at least a crime number, then the weight of statistics will eventually, will bear out the seriousness and the frequency of how often this kind of thing is happening. Is that correct?
Oh. You're both nodding, but I think until education is being brought in, no.
Okay. I think it won't get rid of smoking or violence entirely, but it's another thing that can help in this.
I think it can raise the cases that are going forward, and the possibility of more people getting prosecuted at least.
It's making more people aware. That's the thing, isn't it? We need more people to be aware and something more to be done about it.
And in terms of things, being done, one of the things that struck me as we're having this discussion is there aren't an enormous number of late night drinking venues in Portsmouth. What sort of response are the club owners and the people that organise the security at these venues? How are they responding to these accusations?
I've been working with quite a few. They've been working with some local venues and partners, and they are wanting to help, and they want to do what they can, and they are quite receptive to this, which is really good. And a lot of them have got in spike prevention tools and kits, that we've kind of looked into how their door staff are trained and things like that. So everyone is very receptive and wanting to help out on this.
Sounds at least a positive intent on the part of the owners. It is, again, without naming the names of any venues, so that we don't get sued. Emma, are you aware that whether there are what I call hotspots or particularly, risky venues within Portsmouth?
There were a couple of like you say, without the risk of sort of naming names or anything. There was a couple of clubs that actually come forward, and they were one in particular was being named. Stuff, the spiking was happening there. I did approach them myself, and their answer was when they get a police report that they will look at the CCTV footage and they would do anything in their power to help. But obviously, my niece actually got an email from the police saying, "Do you have any luck with club CCTV footage. So it was like they passed the buck.
Yeah.
So
So that's
not an entirely kind of consistent message then about
no.
there's this thing happening in our venues. We need to do something about it. And you know,
I mean, since then, I have noticed and I have shared a couple of things that have been posted on their walls, like sort of, you know, where they've, you know, said that they put this in place, that in place now. So I have advertised that they put things in place to, you know, make people more aware and feel safer. So, I mean, fingers crossed, it's going to change a few things, but who knows?
thank you.
Thank you. I guess, you know, we all accept that one attack is one attack too many, but do the statistics bear out that the streets are less safe now, or are we just, you know, are we just becoming more aware of it as a society? So if I could ask Mariam, you to pick that one up.
I think people are 100% becoming more aware, and hopefully the right people are becoming more aware. However, with statistics, we need to also remember who's coming forward. Like the statistics went out that hate crime has fallen. Hate crime hasn't fallen, it's just less people are reporting it. Like I think now more people are reporting it when they get spiked. I think that awareness shows women as well that it's not just them it's happening to, that it's a lot of people. But related to like the last question as well, I think a lot more training does need to be done in clubs, because anywhere for a woman to go can be dangerous. Any club for a woman to go to can be dangerous. Even walking the street as a woman can be dangerous. But I also have male friends that work in certain places that have been grabbed by people, which is also not acceptable. Or people just like touching them and grabbing them, and no one should be touched or grabbed without their consent. And I think bouncers need to be more aware of that. When I tend to go out, I tend to always talk to a bouncer and be like, I've got really bad anxiety. What can I do if this happens? I think being more aware of women's body language and their structure, and how even how your eyes move in different ways, could be a way for people to learn. But I think it's just being more awareness. And I also think it has been since the rise of lockdown, if I'm being honest.
That's an interesting perspective. So you think the release of lockdown has led to people perhaps going significantly over the top?
But I also think I may not always sit down and do my research because it's my reality. It's something that women get affected on a day-to-day basis. So something as small as doing research is something that you as men could do and actually see whatever's being targeted, or the information is out there for you, and you don't get affected by it in the same way. So I always say, if you're not affected by this certain thing, do the research on it, because sometimes we're too busy just trying to survive to do our research.
Makes absolute sense. Natasha, anything to add to that?
Again, I don't know statistics on whether it's been more or less dangerous exactly, but I would agree that since lockdown, people seem to not know social, like how to interact with. I think it's appropriate to just grab and touch, and I think also there's a lot going on with people. Like, people don't understand. There's people who are now old enough to be going out that weren't going out before, and again think it's a social norm to be able to just touch people, to be able to just kiss people, to not take no for an answer. And I do think that lockdown has played a big part of this, and it is around education on people knowing what's acceptable, what's not, and what is going to what's going to come of it if you do act in that way, and how you can ruin someone's nights, lives, careers, how you can ruin people's lives.
And Emma, anything to add to that?
No, I think both of them covered that quite well.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, so kind of thank you. So following on from that, I guess, you know, is the experience in Portsmouth, is that indicative of the country, or is, you know, how does this city compare to, compared to this, the stories, even if you don't necessarily have the statistics, how is that compared to the, what you're hearing reported kind of elsewhere? If I can direct that first to Natasha, if that's all right.
Oh, sorry, that froze for a moment.
Yeah, sorry. Did you,
Sorry, I
did
can
you
read
get that?
that. I would just with with how safe Portsmouth is in comparison to the rest of the country, it's everywhere you go, you feel the same. It's not, there'll be some areas that feel safer than others, but it is the same in all cities. And for exact statistics, I don't know them, and it'll probably be a question for the police on that one, really.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. Did Emma or Mariam, did you want to come in on that one at all? Well,
To be fair, what I've heard is there's quite a lot going on in Plymouth with exactly the same things that are going, like obviously that are going on in Portsmouth and Scotland, and so I'm assuming that it's literally exactly, it's just as bad for everyone.
so we'd go as far as to say it's a nationwide endemic.
Yeah, nationwide. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Thank you. Mariam,
yeah, so I think as a woman, we also realise that nowhere is initially safe for us, whether it's the workplace, a meeting, or going on a night out. So I think asking a question such as "Is Portsmouth safe or not as safe as anywhere else?" seems like an easy enough question. But as a woman, the truth is nowhere is safe for us. No matter where we go, there's always something we can run into, and we've always got to try and protect ourselves, even from those things as mystical as someone thinking they can touch your leg, or I was at an event the other day and someone thinking they could put their arm around my shoulder. It's just like, no. I think teaching consent is such an important thing. A lot of people relate consent to sex, and so it could be something similar like the teething show, or whether your child wants a hug from someone. And I think the younger we teach consent, hopefully the better outcome we'll start seeing. Yeah.
just that kind of fundamental basic concept of
Consent,
consent, before you
have you asked the person, do they want this, do they not? And also understanding sometimes people aren't in the right state to give consent. I've had friends that have been absolutely plastered that want to get with me. I've put them to bed, have sat on my floor for the night eating pizza on my phone, not because I didn't find them attractive, but because they were drunk and I was sober, and as a sober one, I refuse to sleep with someone who's drunk.
Indeed, and that's the issue. They're not in a position to give their consent, so it's in a sense it's informed non-consent, so therefore okay, thank you.
So if I could just ask about the role of social media in this situation, is it a power for good that's bringing women together and amplifying their voices to make these issues more real for the people like myself and Simon who haven't experienced it, or does it? Do you think it has a more negative impact? Be interested, Emma, on your perspective on that.
Given the fact that, like I said, it was my niece sharing her story on Snapchat that made me decide to do this, because so many people were like, when she put it on her Snapchat story of what had happened to her, she had so many inboxes from different women saying that the same thing had happened to them, which, like I said, made me sort of prompted me to make the page to hopefully get more and more people to tell their stories, telling them that, just because obviously my niece and a few of the other girls hadn't got any help from the police, that they should still report it. So yeah, I think it's quite a good positive thing with social media, because then obviously people know that not actually on their own, that they've got some more support. They're more likely to sort of go and report it when they know that they're not the only one.
That's excellent. Mariam, your thoughts? So is social media helping in this area? Are people becoming more aware of the challenges that you face?
I think social media works well for women to understand that they're not by themselves. But I think it only works if people diversify their feeds. So how many women are you guys following that share stories or that share what happened on their own accord, it being their choice to share? Or are you following people who are exactly like you? I think if you're a woman, you'll tend to follow people who share the same story as you. You feel related to, you feel understood, and that aspect is great. But if you're a man, I'd advise you to join and follow more groups where women openly talk about this, because they want to, and it's their choice to learn more. So it's the good and it's the bad. And I think there are some people who need to follow more women to learn more.
Thank you. And Natasha?
Yeah, with social media, there's two sides of it because anyone can have a voice and a platform on social media. So for victims and wanting to raise awareness, it's amazing that voices can be heard and people can be listened to. But at the same time, there are people that could be promoting the complete opposite messaging on that social media and having the complete opposite effect of what we want, and promoting violence and promoting hate and promoting misogyny. And so it's really a hard one with social media, but when it's used well, it's amazing, and it can really get across a good message and rally the troops, and we can make change. But there's just the fear of everyone has social media and everyone has a platform because of it.
Do you think though that that we are becoming more intolerant of intolerance? I've been on social media for a number of years, and again, my observation is, and this is just a personal perspective, that those people who hold extremist views, there is a small vocal minority that are prepared, to share those views openly. But I feel that, as a whole, that the majority are becoming more emboldened to say, no, that isn't acceptable.
I think I'd like to change the word instead of intolerance to more people learning and becoming more educated. I think people forget we all grow up in different areas, all see different things, which shapes who we are. So I think I want to change that word to more people learning. As for there being less hate, I know when we put on an event, we will get 300 negative comments on Portsmouth News. So those people are out there. It's just that they tend to stay within their own circle. But I do believe that a lot more people are learning and are starting to stand up for what's right. And that gives me hope.
Thank you. Hope is always a good thing.
Hope is a great thing. As long as you've got hope, you can still keep going. And people out there that will fight, people that don't like you, and that's what we've got to remember. There are people who will stand up for what's wrong, and people that will get in between somewhere and help protect people. As much as the world is scary and horrible and tough, hope is what you've got to hold on to, that things will eventually change. I can be positive too.
But it's a key point. I think that to what you spoke to earlier on, it's a healthier thing to have people in your feed, in your your social media feed that are from a different selection of different backgrounds, of different experience, and actually have different views to you, because just surrounding yourself with people that agree with you all the time,
how you learn
gets exactly. You don't learn anything from people that always agree with you, right? So in that respect, that's a good thing. But sometimes it is, I guess, it can be quite dispiriting to see some of the torrent of comments that you see on places like the Portsmouth Evening News's comments section on their Facebook page. And although those people might shout a lot and shout often, hopefully they're just a large gobby minority. Hopefully. And actually we are moving forward. So thank you. So obviously accepting that it's a fundamental acceptance really that it should be safe for women to walk streets after dark. What advice would you want people to take away to try and help themselves? And we completely agree with the point you made earlier on, that actually it shouldn't be up to them to be keeping themselves to be safe. It should be about other people just not attacking them. Thanks very much. That kind of seems like the rather obvious kind of call out, a no-brainer. But is there any advice that you'd want to share to people to help them be safer? And that first to Marion, please.
Tell your friends not to abuse rape and spike. I think it's been shown that women can do as much as we want to. We can have our keys in between our fingers. We can travel in groups. Someone can still get lost. We can share taxis. We can get a taxi home by ourselves and still get abused in a taxi. The truth is, we can try doing everything we want and we still have no idea. So we're still, we've even got drink covers now, and spiking with needles has come out after we've covered our drinks. So there's more and more things coming out, the more we try to protect ourselves. At this point, I say, no, just teach consent and teach people not to spike. Talk to your male friends. If they say something that sounds like a joke, that isn't a joke, you need to call them out on it. We need to start calling people out on it. That's the only way to truly keep us safe now, because if you hear your guy friend saying, yeah, I had sex with this girl the other day, she was wasted, you need to call him out. You need to ask him about it, because we're the ones who are going through it. It's oh, I put something into this girl's drink, instead of ha ha ha. No, call them out on it. Call them out, because we're doing everything we can, and it's still clearly not working. And the law doesn't look after us, and it's hard for venues to look after us as it is.
Thank you. Emma, did you have anything you wanted to add to that one?
No, I think she's added everything. But I mean, again, like you said, it's just basically that us women, we've got to stay vigilant. We've got to be more aware of like our surroundings when we go out. And I do agree. It's not fair that we have to do it all. You know, we can't go out and enjoy ourselves. So again, basically speak to your friends, get your friends to make them more aware of, you know, it's not funny. It's not, you know, it's not a joke. You can actually kill somebody by spiking them. You know, people have died from being spiked, and it's not it's not a joke. You know, it's just basically, glad to be fair, said it's the same as what Miriam's just said. It's just make me more vigilant, really, when we go out.
Indeed, thank you. And Natasha, anything more on that one?
No, she covered it quite well. We can't keep telling people to cover their drinks and to get a taxi home, because you're constantly put in dangerous positions either way.
Yeah, and thank you. And I guess kind of, you know, I mean, apart from how horrendous it is that women are having to actually find ways to protect themselves from those sorts of you know, those sorts of random attacks, it must be bloody exhausting, right? To try and,
add something
you know,
to
try
that
and live
as
that
well.
way. You know, sorry, go on.
I always say you will find that some people are uncomfortable. Here's the thing: uncomfortable doesn't kill you. Uncomfortable just means you feel weird and funny about something. But if you've made someone uncomfortable, they can learn from that. That's a good thing. No one has died from being uncomfortable about hearing something, either about their racial bias or their patriarchal bias. But it's actually benefited them in learning something. So don't be scared about telling someone something that might make them uncomfortable if it's going to protect someone else.
Okay, thank you. That's really powerful.
And I think that leads us on to the next, you know, our next question, which is that, and I think you touched on it there, you know, which women have done everything they practically can to protect themselves. And practical questions of what men, you know, what do men need to learn, and how can they act as allies in this way? And I guess my other question to that is do you believe this is a generational thing? This is particularly with the spiking. This is a young person's, you know, an area. So I'll probably not phrase that very well, but yeah, in terms of what do men need to learn and what could we all do differently, can I throw that one out to? Can I throw that to you, Mariam?
Can I flip that around and you asking?
Of course you can.
So you said generational, but every generation has had rape, and I feel like where things have moved so forward in life, spiking is being done in different ways. Like we use social media in different ways. So instead of calling it a generational issue, I'd want to call it a man's issue. And I'd like to say to you, what as a man, what do you think you've learned? What do you think you can do? It's very well asking women, and this is different because of the space we're in. We've come to talk, but I want to know, as a man, what do you think you can do? What do you think can be done?
Yeah, and you know, if you're asking me personally, you know, from my perspective, you know, I now work in a world where, and live in a world where, you know, late night clubs and that those kind of environments are alien to me. But I have two sons who are 21 and 18, and brought them both up to respect women and to treat them appropriately and respect their choices. And I think that's that for me is evident. And again, whatever little I can do, personally with like with the podcast that we've got, and with the social media platforms that I frequent, it is about being very clear on where those lines lie, and reinforcing that message. And it's the reason why I asked the generational question is because the concept of injecting somebody to incapacitate them, to force yourself upon them sexually, is just such an alien concept to me. I can't, look, I'm old, I'm 52. In quote unquote my generation, that wasn't and never was a thing. So I'm almost at a loss to understand how somebody can think A, it's okay to do it, and B, that they'd even be prepared to discuss that they're doing it. And I think, as you touched on in your previous answer, that some of their friends would find that just a bit of a lark.
I think that was quite a good response. I think also with your son is talking to them more. And I just want to say there's a comment from Colin, and no, Colin, I'm aware that guys are spiked too, and it's horrific and it's wrong. I know that females do it as well. The reason I call it a man's problem is looking at statistics, is that it is a lot of men doing that. However, if you have been spiked or abused as a man as well, please do go to parks and get the help, and please do speak out. I know it is harder for men to speak out, and that's because of patriarchal issues. That's because of how men have treated other men. It doesn't make you any less of a victim, and men can be a victim too. So no woman who's a feminist has ever said men can't be victims. And I do urge, like, if you can, do report it, because you might be the voice that other men need to hear to know that they are victims. No one's ever said that a man can't be a victim. It's just looking at statistics. It's very clear that every woman has a story, whereas every man might not have a story. But that does not make you any less of a victim. And I do urge you, that does happen to you, please don't be embarrassed. Please go get counselling at parks. It's one of the best things you can do to help yourself and know your own mind as well. And if you can, try and report, and don't stand for it. If a girl's touch you in a club, go and report that as well. I have friends that work as bouncers that have been grabbed in clubs. One of my best friends is a rugby player who got grabbed. And I went to go tell a bouncer with him in a certain club, not going to say what club, and the bouncer said, "What do you want me to do about it?" I went up to the bouncer after and went, "If I said that happened to me, it'll be completely different." So I know that our girls out there stand up for you guys that have been spiked as well, while realising that too many women have similar stories. I don't know if that helped in any way.
That's very helpful, Mariam. So in terms of that question, is it, what can men do to be more supportive, Natasha?
Yeah, so this isn't just for members, this is for everyone, just being an ally and being an active bystander. So noticing when people look uncomfortable, when behaviour is wrong, calling it out. Like there's three approaches to it. So you've got direct, delegate, and distract. So direct would be just going straight to the situation, calling the behaviour out and saying it's not okay. Distract would be creating diversion to remove the victim from the situation, and the delegate would be in a situation where it's not safe to be direct or distract, to actually get someone else involved, such as the police, or if you're in a club, a security member of staff, and get them to deal with the situation. And I think learning the social cues, learning what's okay, what looks like someone's uncomfortable, what looks like someone's in danger, and learning on how you can actually intervene and help someone out. I think that's the most you can do. And even things just look out for everyone else, as if be an ally.
Well, brilliant. Emma, anything to add there?
No, not at all.
Perfect.
Okay, so our last question, which is a bit of a rhetorical one, which is some of the, we've had some ridiculous suggestions in our time. The one about flagging down a bus if a woman needs assistance. Is that Is that the most ridiculous suggestion? Or, God, are there worse ones? Are there even more ridiculous suggestions? If I can ask that first to Natasha.
Oh, absolutely ridiculous. To flag down a bus if you're feeling unsafe with is it with the officer, wasn't it?
That was the context of the suggestion, wasn't it? Is that if you feel that the police officer that's trying to arrest you isn't basically an on-duty police officer that has the authority to arrest you, then you should flag down a bus.
There is so many reasons why that's wrong. Firstly, you should be able to trust your officer. So, secondly, how easy is it to flag down a bus? Not very.
No.
If you feel like you're in a dangerous position, I don't think you're going to be able to flag down a bus. And also, I can't remember what the point was. There was another one, but I just find it utterly ridiculous that to even suggest that a bus is going to stop and understand the situation, and the chances are the bus driver will believe the police officer over yourself. Sorry, and I thought it was an utterly ridiculous suggestion.
It did kind of beg a belief a bit. Other people might use different words. Emma, did you want to have a response on that one at all?
Well, considering that came from our Prime Minister, it was quite funny, really, considering that, if he's going to come out with something that's so ridiculous, how is the police going to take anything that's going on seriously?
Indeed, yeah. So we've kind of called out that it's a ridiculous suggestion, but you make a serious and valid point that actually, for someone in a position of power to make such a ridiculous suggestion, kind of speaks to how seriously, or doesn't help people understand that taking the situation seriously, does it?
100%.
Mariam, anything to add on that one?
It's funny because I feel like some members of the Black community have been saying like how unsafe police can be for us. At certain times, one of my mum's best friends, Leon Briggs, was actually died in police custody. So as a Black woman, it's never been something new that the police can be dangerous to me. It's at the same time, while I have to work with them as being part of BLM. But no, I think that was probably the joke of the year. But was I surprised? To be frank, no, because the people that say this and the people that give these options don't walk in our shoes and don't live our life. So was I surprised? Absolutely not.
Thank you.
So would like to thank you all for contributing to what is a very serious topic, and thank you all for sharing so openly your different stories. Just as we come to the end of the show, just want to give you all a final chance. Is there anything that you'd like to add, or you think that our listeners would benefit from knowing or learning? And can I start with Natasha?
I think we kind of covered a lot. There's been a lot of work we're doing as well, and we're continuing doing from the union side for not just for students, for the general area, and trying to just put safety measures into place and ensure we can help as much as we can through our safety.
Perfect. And Mariam, any final thoughts from yourself?
I think don't be afraid to make people feel uncomfortable, to protect other people. Speak out, and men just start learning more.
Thank you. And finally, Emma, anything you'd like to add?
I mean, like I said, it's been valid points, hasn't it? A lot about keeping us women safe, but I am on I believe that we should be keeping people safe. So it's just making more people aware of what's going on, and we're hoping that people will come forward when they've been spiked, males and females, and hoping that we can get more in place from this. Hopefully this will push more people to come forward.
And hopefully that whole momentum, that it's just, as I said, it's such an alien concept to me that
There is one more thing I want to say, if it's okay.
Of course you can.
So this is to women, men, or anyone that has been abused. Just know that it's part of your story, but it does not make you you. It's not you. It's just part of what's happened to you. It doesn't change your morals, your ethics, and who you are.
Mariam, I think that's a perfect place to end the show. So thank you for that, and thank you to all of our guests. You've been listening to the Pompey Politics Podcast. I've been Ian Tiny Morris.
And our guests have been from the Students' Union of Portsmouth University.
Natasha Laley.
Thank you. And from Spike Aware Portsmouth.
Emma Cherry. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And from Black Lives Matter Portsmouth.
Navium Daniel.
Thank you both. Thank you all. I've been Simon Sandbury, and if you'd like to join us next week, where our show is in Faceless Mob, we'll be asking whether internet anonymity is a freedom worth the price of online abuse, whether elected representatives should be able to take second jobs, and whether keeping elected representatives safe or from the public is damaging or protecting our democracy.